Good morning, Alex. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Miss Carter. I'm doing fine, thank you. Well, actually, maybe not entirely fine. I've been feeling a bit stuck with my English lately.
Stuck?
I feel like I'm not making any real progress. I'm trying to improve, but sometimes it feels like I'm just going in circles. Watching videos, practicing vocabulary, and still making the same mistakes. It's like I'm working hard but not moving forward.
I understand how that feels, Alex. A lot of students hit that plateau at some point, but the good news is that there's a way out of it. Have you ever thought about setting clear goals for your English learning?
Goals? You mean like I want to speak fluently? I've had that idea, but it feels too vague. And honestly, it hasn't helped much.
That's a common issue. When goals are too broad, it's hard to know where to start or whether you're making progress. That's why it's important to set specific and actionable goals, especially as we're heading into a new year like 2025. Think of it as giving yourself a clear map instead of just wandering around.
A map. I like that idea, but how do I create one? I've tried making plans before, and I still got lost.
Great question. Have you heard of SMART goals?
Not really. What does it mean?
SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. It's a framework that can help you turn vague aspirations into actionable steps. Let's break it down. For example, instead of saying, I want to speak fluently, you could say, I want to hold a 10-minute conversation in English about my favorite hobby by the end of March.
Oh, I see. That's much more detailed.
Exactly. Let's go over each part of SMART. First, specific. Your goal should focus on a clear area, like improving your speaking skills or mastering business vocabulary. The more specific, the better.
So instead of just improve my speaking, I could say be able to describe my daily routine fluently.
Perfect. Now, measurable. How will you know you've achieved it? For example, I will practice speaking for 15 minutes every day, or I will pass an online speaking test.
I like the idea of tracking my daily practice. That sounds doable.
Good. Then we have achievable. Your goal should challenge you, but it also needs to be realistic. If you're just starting out, saying you'll speak like a native in 3 months isn't very realistic, right?
Definitely not. I've made that mistake before, and it just made me feel worse when I couldn't reach it.
That's why setting achievable goals is so important. Now, relevant. Your goal should align with your personal or professional needs. Why do you want to improve your English? For work, travel, connecting with people?
For me, it's a mix of work and personal reasons. I want to communicate better with clients and also feel more confident in conversations when I travel.
Excellent. Keep that motivation in mind. Finally, time bound. Every goal needs a deadline. Without one, it's easy to procrastinate. For instance, you might say, by June 2025, I will be able to give a short presentation in English at work.
That makes sense. Having a deadline would push me to stay focused.
Exactly. Using SMART goals gives you clarity and direction. Plus, achieving these small milestones along the way can be really motivating. Remember, goals are meant to guide you, not to punish you. It's okay to adjust them if needed. Mistakes aren't failures, they're part of the learning process. Think of them as stepping stones.
I like that perspective. So, where do I start? Should I write down my goals right now?
That's a great idea. But before we dive into writing them, let's take a moment to think about what's really important to you and what areas of English you want to improve most. We'll also talk about how to break those goals into smaller steps.
That sounds good. I'm ready to figure this out.
Excellent. Let's continue with defining your priorities and creating a roadmap. But first, let's pause here and reflect on what we've discussed so far.
So, we've talked about why setting goals is important and how SMART goals can guide us. But how do I figure out what my goals should even be? There are so many areas in English speaking, writing, listening, reading. It feels overwhelming.
That's a common feeling, and it's perfectly normal. Let's start with the question. What's your biggest challenge right now?
I'd say speaking. I freeze up in conversations, especially with native speakers. I know some grammar and vocabulary, but when it's time to talk, my brain goes blank.
That's a good starting point. So, your primary goal could be improving your speaking skills, but let's get more specific. What kind of speaking situations do you want to handle better?
I think casual conversations and maybe interviews for internships. I feel like I should sound more natural and confident in both.
Excellent. See how narrowing it down makes it more manageable? Now let's look at your other skills. How's your listening?
It's okay, but not great. If someone speaks too fast or uses idioms, I struggle. It's frustrating because I feel like I'm missing out on understanding the whole conversation.
That's another area to work on then. Listening and speaking often go hand in hand. What about writing? Do you need it for academic or professional purposes?
Yeah, I have to write reports and essays for school. It's not horrible, but I could definitely improve my clarity and flow.
Perfect. And reading?
Reading is probably my strongest skill. I can understand most articles and books, but sometimes technical vocabulary trips me up.
You've just outlined your goals: speaking for casual conversations and interviews, improving listening comprehension, refining your writing for school, and tackling more advanced reading materials.
When you put it like that, it sounds doable, but also a little scary.
It's only scary if you try to do everything at once. That's why we break it into smaller steps. Let's take speaking, for example. What's a realistic milestone for you in the next 3 months?
Maybe having one casual conversation a week without panicking.
That's a great start. And what can you do to practice for those conversations?
I could join a language exchange group or practice with friends who are fluent.
Excellent ideas. Now let's apply the same method to listening. What could you do there?
Maybe listen to a podcast every day and try to write down key points.
Perfect.
I could write one essay or report each week and ask someone to review it.
Great plan. And for reading?
I'll
Good
pick one
morning,
advanced
Alex.
article or
How
book
are you
chapter
doing
a week
today?
and make a list of new
See how
vocabulary.
breaking it down makes it manageable? It's all about taking small, consistent steps.
Yeah, but how do I stay motivated? What if I mess up or miss a week?
That's where celebrating milestones comes in. Reward yourself when you reach a goal, like successfully completing a conversation or writing a polished essay. And if you miss a week, don't dwell on it. Adjust your plan and keep going.
What kind of rewards?
Something meaningful to you. Maybe treating yourself to a movie, a meal, or even just taking a break to do something you love.
That sounds fair. But what if my goals start to feel too hard or irrelevant?
Then you adjust them. Goals aren't set in stone. They should grow with you. If something isn't working or doesn't align with your needs anymore, tweak it.
I like that. It takes the pressure off.
Exactly. And remember, the key is consistency. Even small progress adds up over time.
You're right. I feel like I have a roadmap now, steps I can actually take.
That's the goal. You've got a clear path, and I'm confident you'll make great progress if you stick with.